Assalamu alaikum everyone. How are you guys? I hope all of you would be doing really great. So we are here with our very second chapter of the COVID-19 lockdown web series. So we are going to talk about the performance management and appraisals today, chapter number 10 of your book. And I am Masroor Soomro, faculty for Human Resource Management, Sukkur University. This lecture is particularly intended for the students of MS PhD deficiency courses, MBA and BBA. So let's start with our today's lecture. So what do you understand by performance management or performance appraisals? All of you must have heard about performance management or performance appraisals. So this type of activity is carried at every organization annually, semi-annually, and maybe quarterly if you're a sales company. So in order to meet the sales targets, the organizations have different varying standards, different varying appraisal methods. So this management of performance appraisal activities vary from organization to organization. And today we are going to learn about more about this process or this activity. Okay, Ji, let me tell you that performance management systems or performance management department is the section of the HR department is one of the most powerful department you would ever encounter with, since they are the ones who actually manage your performance and your pay is dependent on your performance. So most of the organization practice this kind of compensation system that is referred as pay for performance, and at the same time your trainings are also connected with the performance management. If your performance is good, you are going to have trainings to improve or make you more better. And if even if your performance is bad, we are going to recommend you for certain trainings. Okay, your compensation, your increments, your promotions, your demotions, everything is linked with performance. Therefore the people sitting in this department are referred as one of the most strong people and powerful and influential people, since they have this power of legitimate, whatever you say, the legitimate power or reward power or coercive power. In fact, these people exercise all three types of legal or formal power that they have, apart from expert and referent power. So let's proceed. Let's talk more about this chapter in detail. So performance management. So what do you understand? Why? What is the difference between performance appraisal and what is the performance management? Let me tell you in the very start what is performance appraisal, and then I would move or switch towards management, since management, whatever the term that is attached with management, is a very vast and broad area. Therefore it is referred as management system. Okay, let me explain you the performance appraisal. Okay, it is a process of evaluating how well the employees are performing their jobs, whether they are achieving their organization goals or objectives, whatever, or whether they are contributing or helping us achieve the organizational goals or objectives. And then we communicate that information with the employees as well, that how can they can help us in achieving organizational goals, or how they can contribute more better than other employees, and how they are going to get rewarded for whatever their performance is. Okay, now this is the only an activity that is carried out within an organization. It's a mostly a month or 2 months long activity that is carried out in any organization, depending upon the size of the organization. Okay, now coming towards performance management. Well, when we are talking about performance management, we are actually talking about processes, not just one process. It is number of different activities that are referred as processes. The processes to identify the good or bad performance, how you will be identifying, there are certain sources to identify what are the various different methods to measure or encourage employee performance, how you are going to measure it, how you are going to evaluate, how you are going to get that information about the employees, how they are performing, whether they are achieving good or bad results, whatever the results are, and how you are going to encourage them, what would be your policies, what would be your procedures. Either you are going to practice reward power or coercive power, or you are going to use your legitimate power to promote somebody or demote somebody or to transfer somebody from one place to another place, depending upon the performance of that employee. So when we are talking about performance management, we are actually talking about how we are going to use the information that we actually gathered with the help of performance appraisal. So performance appraisal can be a process, but at the same time, performance appraisal itself is a tool, is an instrument that is used to evaluate the employee performance, and that is used to give feedback to the employees how they can improve. Whereas in performance management, we actually use that information gathered through performance appraisal at various different places. We can use it for administrative purposes, we can use it for career development or developmental uses of the organizational development, and it can be employee development. It can be, the information can be used for both terms. How we will be talking about those things in more detail in our coming slides. Moving forward. Okay, let's talk about the nature of the performance management. What do you mean by nature? Okay, an effective performance management system has four main characteristics or basic four functions that makes an organizational performance management system an effective system. The very first thing that this system has to ensure is to make clear what organization actually expects from its employees. One. Number second point is to provide information to the employees about their performance, how they are performing, how they can actually perform more better. Number three is identify the areas of success as well as the areas where our employees are lacking or where they actually needed more development, actually needed more hard work, where they actually want or they should put some more effort in order to be successful in that area. Number fourth is to document the process. Okay, one this point, number fourth point, is one of the most important and critical and significant point. Document performance for personnel record. Okay, most of the time organizations are sued in the court of law on various different grounds. Most of the time employees go into the court of law and file a suit against the company that they are promoting employees that actually don't deserve to be promoted. So here this document is going to help us justify our position, why we actually promoted that person. When we have the performance record of the employee, when we have the documented. Let me clear you one more thing here. Whenever we are actually going to promote an employee, we have to ensure that this employee, whether it's he or she is actually performing at exceed expectations for last 3 years. And if this person has been performing meet expectations, again the policy depends from organization to organization, but in some organizations it is sometimes referred as seniority promotions. If you are serving a satisfactory employee for last 5 years, you can be promoted based on the seniority. But if your performance was extraordinary, you was exceeding expectations, therefore you can get promotion within 2 or 3 years. Depends how critical your job is, how important your achievements were. So these documents are actually going to help us justify our position in the court of law and get ourselves cleared from any suit file against us. Okay, moving forward. Okay, the traditional approach. At the moment, we people are actually having performance management system, but previously we don't used to have such kind of processes, and the methods that were used were actually abstract, not clear. The performance standards were not clear. So Initially, we used to have these three basic functions that the performance appraisal process has to go through. It's a traditional performance. Every organization actually has this kind of a system. But since we are actually going through 21st century, therefore we have developed many other sources. Please pardon me. I'm actually having a call. I have to attend it. So I pause this recording here for a minute. Okay, so we were discussing about the traditional performance appraisal processes that every organization has. It has basic three components of that three basic functions. The HR department designs the systems and trains the supervisors. How you are going to conduct performance appraisals. Okay, what are the basic difficult areas in which you might have certain problems? Therefore, it is the department, HR department's duty to actually train the supervisors, because these are the people who are going to evaluate other employees. If these people themselves don't know how to evaluate the results or how to rate employees on the scales, so we might have the information that is actually inaccurate. It won't measure the employee performance, rather it would create more problem for the organization as well. The second point is the manager reviews ratings. Okay, you have to ensure supervisors or coach supervisors who are actually going to be rated or who are going to rate the employees. Then third component is the employee receive the feedback. Once the training is done, the supervisor has to actually rate other employees, or the coaches, supervisors, and the junior staff, how you can actually evaluate your junior staffs. And then the third component is the employee get the feedback, addresses the issues, and we set new standards, new goals to be achieved for the future. So this is the traditional approach that we actually use for performance appraisals. But nowadays we are having a more standardized, more systematic procedures over here. Performance management linkage. This is referred as okay. What we actually do, we actually link organizational strategies with the performance management areas. Based on the strategies, we develop performance management standards. We develop criteria how we are going. We actually devise more organizational strategies into departmental strategies, and then we devise or further divide these strategies into functional areas of each department. And based on that functional areas or functional strategies, we actually devise employee goals or objectives for a period of 6 months, or for a period of 1 year, or for a period of 3 months or 4 months, whatever the case is in your case. Okay, so performance management again. Here we are going to identify the expected performance levels. What are the various performance levels that need to be achieved, that need to be made at any cost? You have to identify that performance levels, where employee would be rated as meet expectations, and where they are going to rate as exceed expectations, or they are going to be rated as below expectations, or not applicable or not acceptable. Encourage high levels of performance. Try to motivate employees so that they can actually achieve more higher performance. And how you are going to encourage them? Certainly you are going to provide them feedback, you are going to provide them incentives and intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. You have to create a balance between the both in order to encourage the employee high level performance. Then measure individual performance and then evaluate. Measure it, and then your job is to evaluate whether they are achieving, whether they are doing it right or wrong, and provide them feedback, or individual or a group based feedback, depends how your company actually performs. Provide assistance if needed. Okay, if you are seeing that an employee is actually not performing well because he is lacking certain expertise, try to give him assistance in terms of what? In terms of trainings. Provide that employee with a specific training if that person is not performing in that specific area. Reward or discipline depending upon the performance. If the employee is performing extraordinary, reward him. reward him with a promotion, reward him with an increment in his salary, reward him with a bonus or whatever the case is, or discipline that person either by decrementing in his salary or demotion in his current position or status. Depends how you are going to discipline the employee. What is your management style of disciplining your employees? Okay, once you have gone through that performance, you will actually have the performance document, performance evaluated, and you are going to use that information in order for performance management outcomes. Okay, what would be the outcomes? Either you are going to increase the payoff, the employee, you are going to reward him with an incentive, you are going to give him or her a promotion or advancement. By what do I mean by advancement? That is job enrichment or enlargement, or you are going to add more responsibilities with certain more autonomy and freedom to make decisions. You are going to use that information for training and development. You can use that information also for career planning if you are actually succession planning. If you are doing succession planning for an employee, if you think this person can serve us in future at a senior level position, you can also use that information. Disciplinary action is you can use it for this and different whatever your job is. Okay, once these outcomes or once the performance management information is used for these outcomes, we will actually these outcomes will have an impact on overall organizational results, whether we are going to achieve our long-term goals or not, whether we are going to meet our short-term objectives or targets for department wise, whether our employees are satisfied or dissatisfied, whether their satisfaction is strong or weak, and how we can make it more strong or better. And we use that information for performance, for the coordination purpose. Coordination between what? Pay and the performance issue. If you are going to perform, you are going to get rewarded. You are going to get rewarded with handsome salary, with handsome pay. Depends. So nowadays the system has been so much advanced that we are actually utilizing it, and ERP systems has made our lives more easier. The performance management systems are nowadays are run on ERP systems depending upon company policy. Okay, what are the basic components of performance management system? At the very first level, at the top level, you need to develop and understand the corporate strategy. Based on that corporate strategy, you are going to develop your divisional and departmental and functional strategies. And based on the functional strategies, you are going to identify the performance expectations from each employee, because performance management goals, objectives, or criteria developed from employee to employee, because every employee has its own goals and objectives. Therefore, okay, one thing should be cleared here, that it is not the job of the HR department to develop goals and objectives for an individual employee. We actually devise an abstract method of developing goals and objectives for individual job, but it is you who is actually performing that job. You know it, you know what you are going to do in order to achieve certain goals and objectives. You being the supervisor, you can evaluate whether this goal can be achieved within 3 months or a semi-annually period of time or an yearly time. So it is your job to develop goals and objective for your own employee. Rather, it should be given, this responsibility should be given to employee and supervisor. This should be in between employee and the supervisor. Employee is the one who is going to define the goals and objective for himself, and supervisor is going to cross check and verify if those goals are easy or difficult, or how we can make it more decent goals and objectives for an employee. Then comes the second point, providing performance direction. Your job is to keep a check on the employee. You, that means you are the departmental supervisor. It is your job to give employees a performance direction, how they can actually perform better, whether they are going in right direction or wrong direction. So you have to direct your employees in a specific direction. Encourage employee participation. Employee involvement is necessary. Employee citizenship is very much necessary in order to achieve what we intend to achieve through performance management system. If employees are not participating, if employees are actually not appreciating the performance management system, then certainly this system is not going to perform at all. Okay, the assessing job performance. Then your job is to assess, devise a mechanism how you are going to assess an employee's goals and objectives are achieved or not. And if they are achieved, how better they are achieved, or how better, even more better, it could have been if employee would have done it in a specific way. Then comes the conducting performance appraisals. You actually, once the performance is assessed, appraisal is only a document on which you actually register your assessed performance, that you have actually achieved something, and give it a shape of a form or a document. So conducting performance appraisal is basically collecting that assessed information on a 2 or 3 pages in the form of a form. Okay, proceeding further, components of performance focused culture. If you are working within an organization that is referred as learning organizations, where learning is an ongoing process, your organization is always in the change. Therefore, you need to develop such a system where such a culture or such a performance management system, or you have to devise such clear components of performance that actually promotes your culture. So clear expectations, goals, and deadlines, because you are always in movement, you are always in transition. You need to clearly specify the goals and deadlines to your employees so that they can achieve those goals. Okay, the detailed appraisal of the employee performance. You need to develop such performance appraisal forms that actually detail every step to employees before hand they actually start their mission, or before they actually start working on any project or task. Clear feedback on performance. The foremost important and significant area of any performance management system is the feedback. You need to give employees the feedback. You need to tell him or her what are the gray areas that he need to work on or she need to work on. If he or she is going to improve that specific area, she is going to get rewarded. If not, she is going to be kicked out of the company. You need to give them a clear cut feedback. Okay, one thing should be remembered here. Okay, whenever a new employee comes in an organization, the first 6 months are referred as honeymoon period. You cannot discipline that employee. You cannot give any kind of advisory note to that employee. You cannot give any kind of explanation or show cause to that employee, because that employee is actually adjusting into a new environment, because he or she is either new to the corporate world, or he or she is coming from different company, and he or she is going to take some time to adjust into our organizational culture. Therefore, first 6 months, all the mistakes are ignored for a new employee. But your job as a supervisor, your job as a manager, as a departmental manager, is this, that you have to highlight those mistakes. But remember, when you are highlighting a mistake, your job is not to criticize. Rather, it is your job to give him the feedback. If you should have done this work, the outcome would have been different. Remember, the tone matters. The tone that you are speaking. If you are speaking in a blunt and harsh, rude, impolite way, then you are going to actually demotivate the employee. Your job is not to demotivate, rather motivate the employee, especially a new employee who is still developing an image of the organization, who is still not sure whether he is going to serve this company for a longer period of time or not. If you are going to demotivate this employee within the first 6 months, certainly this person won't last here for a long period of time until unless he or she is having some compulsions on his hand or her hand. She is compelled to serve here because of his conditions. Okay, managers, therefore, feedback is necessary, but there should not be any kind of criticism. Okay, the fourth level or the fourth component of performance focused culture is the managers' employees should be trained, should be given training as needed. They should be given training how to utilize the performance appraisal forms, how they can develop smart goals for themselves, how they can write various performance objective statements by themselves. You need to help them write, give them training how to develop objective statements, how to develop goals and targets that are specific, timely framed, measurable, realistic. Okay, ji. The fourth, sorry, last, the tip of the berg, or the final point is the consequences of the performance. What would be the consequences of performance? What if the employee has achieved what he or she was intended? What if he hasn't or she hasn't? What would be the consequences? Either promotion or demotion, either increment or decrement. So, what are the consequences? You have to keep that thing in your mind. Okay, moving forward. Identifying and measuring employee performance. Performance criteria. You have to develop criteria for appraisals. Okay, when it comes to the developing a criteria, there are these 6 points that need to be kept in mind. The very first thing, the quality and quantity of the output that the employee has actually produced, whether it was timely achieved or it was late, whether we met our deadlines or did not, how efficient and effective the work was completed. Okay, remember, effectiveness is necessary, but at the same time, efficiency, optimum utilization of resources, getting the most out of the least is always appreciated within an organization, because everyone actually works, but the one who actually works efficiently, the one who actually saves resources of the organizations gets appreciated. The resources that you have actually saved, you might get certain percentage as a bonus. So there are always consequences of good and bad performance. Then comes the presence and attendance on the job. If you are motivated and if you are demotivated, the presence and attendance of you at your work do get recorded. The number of whether you are actually suffering from absenteeism. So everything is actually measured. When you are identifying and measuring employee performance, you have to ensure all these 6 points are there in the performance appraisal form. Moving forward, identifying and measuring performance continue. Job duties. What do you understand by job duties? When we are actually talking about quality and quantity, the timeliness, efficiency, and effectiveness, we are actually talking about your job duties. How effectively I am actually conducting my classes. I, being a teacher, what are my duties? To conduct lecture, okay, to assess the students, provide the feedback, treat the students with respect, treat the students' queries, okay, handle the student problems, encourage students to ask questions. These are my main duties to come and conduct my class lectures. My communication style, how appreciative I am towards the students, how encouraging I am, how motivating I am towards my students, whether I motivate my students or I frighten my students. What is more important, motivating and encouraging employees or frightening employees? You have to ensure. When I am serving as a teacher, I am actually serving as a manager, and my students are my employees. I actually reward their performance in terms of class grades, percentage, marks, participation. So all these things need to be kept in mind when you are actually going into the organization. This was a minor example that is actually related with you and me. But when you will be going to the organization, the same kind of environment would be there as well. All the employees would be the students, and the manager or the boss that you are serving will be your teacher. He will be telling you what to do, what not to do, and how you can improve. Important elements in a given job are identified from a job description. You need to go through the job description of that employee and identify what are the important elements, what are the main frequently performed jobs, or what are the main duties and responsibilities, knowledge, skills, and abilities required to do those TDRs, tasks, duties, and responsibilities. What an organization pays to an employee to do. You have to identify those core elements for which they are actually being paid for. Okay, we have an example here of a customer feedback or a customer sales representative. So how you can rate the management duties for a sample form. Say for instance, you are a customer representative. So improve customer feedback by 50%. So maximum percentage or weightage is given to the customer feedback. The cost control operations is given, efficiency is given to the 30% is given to this efficiency, and encourage quality improvements, quality and quantity. 20% weightage is given. The overall weightage after your jobs and duties is given to are divided into these three basic duties. Same goes for my job as well. The student feedback 50%, 30% the students, and 20% from my colleagues. Okay, what about my overall contribution as a teacher towards the organization, towards the university? 30% would be there. I serve as a warden, I serve as a coordinator, 20% weightage for that as well. So overall, my duties would be divided into three parts or maybe four, depends what kind of job I am actually performing. So the criteria would be developed in such a way, and weightage should be given in that way. Moving forward, types of performance information. What kind of information we actually collect with the help of performance appraisals? The one information that is referred as descriptive information. The descriptive information is who am I, what is my job title, okay, what is my grade, whether I am an exempted employee or an non-exempted employee, in which department I serve, to whom I report, and how many people actually report to me. This information is referred as descriptive information. This information is used only for documentational purpose. It has nothing to do with your performance. Then comes this type of information. This is referred as trait based. We actually go and study your traits. Attitude. What kind of attitude this person has? Positive or negative towards employees, towards organization, towards his job. Team management or team skills, whether he or she loves to work in teams, whether he takes initiative or not, how effective communicator he is, whether he is persuasive in his communication skills or not, whether he can communicate in a specific way that is demanded by the organization, how creative he or she is, values and dispositions. You have to study all these traits of a person. Then comes the behavioral based information, the customer satisfaction, whether our customers, whether our clients are satisfied from his services. Verbal persuasion, how good I am at verbal persuasion, pursuing other people, how I am persuasive itself, how I am pursuing other people, timeliness of my response, how promptly I respond towards people requirement, how promptly I respond towards emails and phone calls, whether I am committed towards my organization, whether I believe in community welfare, whether I believe in organizational commitment and ethics, or I violate the organizational ethics or code of conduct. And the third and most useful data that is really appreciated all the time. Nearly 80% is weight given to this data. And this is referred as what result based. Doesn't matter what kind of behavior you have. If you are in sales and you are achieving results, it is less important to consider about your traits and behavior, what kind of behavior you are having. If you are giving me results, depends. If I am a smaller company, for me the important for survival is sales. If you are generating sales, you are a precious employee for me. But for a bigger organization, is more focused on the behavior of the employee. If employees can behave nicely, because organization's reputation depends on it. If one or two employees actually misbehave with them clients, certainly these clients going to spread bad word of mouth about my company. So important for a big company is the employees' behavior, the style, the tone in which they speak, their communication skills are more important. The customer satisfaction is more important. If this employee is not satisfying it, then ultimately big company does not actually depend upon that only one salesperson. But a smaller company need that one employee who actually generates sales, achieves sales targets, cost reduction, unit produced, quality improved. If you are in production house and you have reduced the cost and you are producing more units at a much lesser or cheaper price and the quality has been improved, for a smaller organization all these result based information is most useful. Normally in big companies also we use this information as well, but the big companies, the big corporate organizations, they actually focus more on behavior information than on results. They are more focused on traits and behavior. Once these two dimensions are correct, ultimately these two correct are these two information sources are these two main areas of performance are going to impact the ultimate 80% of the results. So the usefulness of the information is trait based information is much less useful as compared to result based information. Result based information is more useful. 80% of the weightage is given to the result based approaches. The ratio is between 80-20 or 70-30. Moving forward, relevance of the performance criteria, factors affecting the relevance. How relevant the performance criteria is. You have to ensure that the measures that you have developed are not deficient, are not contaminated, are not overemphasized. For example, what do you mean by deficient measures? The measures that are intended to measure the employee performance. If those measures are not correctly devised, so how you are going to actually measure the employee performance? Say for instance, if I am a lecturer and you are going to measure, remember one thing. I told you that when you are developing goals and objectives for an employee, the goals and objectives are actually devised individually. So these goals and objectives vary from employee to employee. So my goals cannot be any other person's goals. So if I am teaching HRM and corporate social responsibility, so my other colleagues teaching in the human resource faculty may not be teaching the same course or maybe teaching, depends. Therefore, we have to devise different goals and objectives, and these goals should not be deficient. So I, being a teacher, I teach as well as I am the coordinator, I am the warden, and I am the member of the strategic committees. Therefore, what is my contribution over there? If you are only measuring, if you are only appreciating my performance or evaluating my performance only through teaching, and you are neglecting my performance in my other areas, those skills are referred as what deficient skills, because you have actually what compromised my information. You didn't measure my performance as a warden, how I am performing as a warden. You haven't measured my performance as a coordinator, as a member of strategic committee. What was my contribution there? You actually compensated me. You actually concessioned me. You have given me concessions. You actually compromised my performance measures. Then comes the second, that is the contaminated. For instance, I have been hired as a lecturer HR, but if I am given another responsibility to teach accounting courses, to teach law courses, and you are actually developing a system or developing measures that is actually evaluating me on the HR, but you are taking the work of an accountant from me. So when you will compare, when you will evaluate me on the scales of accounting person and I am an HR person, so my performance would be obviously low as compared to a person who is already having a specialization in accounting. Or you can say you actually hired me to work in HR department and now you want me to work as an accountant manager, manage your accounts, reconcile your reports, reconcile your profit loss accounts. So whether I am going to perform well in that department, in accounts department, or I am more certain to perform extraordinarily in my own area of specialization, that is HR. So if you are going to measure, if you are going to measure me on the scales of accounting person, so that measures are actually referred as what? Contaminated. Overemphasized. What do you mean by overemphasized? The third relevant criteria component is whether you are only emphasizing on two or three things in my job. You are giving more weight to only two or three things and you are actually neglecting the rest of my work, rest of my other responsibilities. If you are only emphasizing on recent events and you have actually neglected my rest of the year's performance or my work or my hard work, then in that case, my performance is going to be referred as overemphasized. That measure won't actually measure my result. Okay, we have this example, but let me stop it here since I have to take your class. Sorry, I have to go for something. Please pardon me.